Hey, today I'll be showing you how I made this Star Wars animation in only one day. So I'll be showing you how I turned this template file into this final animation that you see right here, and I will also quickly break down how I made this second shot using the same project file and render layers. So let's go!
So it's my pleasure to introduce to you the Eternal Ascent 3D Community Challenge.
The biggest 3D competition on the internet, Eternal Ascent 3D Challenge, hosted by Clinton Johnson. You guys might know him as Punisher. Every time I participated in these challenges, I learned something new and improved my skills as a 3D artist. By the time I started working on this animation, there was only 3 days left till the deadline. So I either had to give up or come up with an idea that was executable within the time limit. Well, fortunately, there was a solution. I make a lot of Star Wars renders, and just to make them faster, I have some assets on my hard drive that I use in all of my projects. So I thought if I use the same assets, I might just be able to make it to the deadline. I didn't have much time to waste, so I started immediately. I opened up the starter file, and I needed to fill up this blank space quickly if I was to finish this in a day. I decided to start with the background and work my way to the foreground, just to fill up that blank space really quick. And to do that, I imported these buildings, which I got from sci-fi3d.com. They have a whole collection of Star Wars buildings that you can use for your projects. I should warn you though, most of the files here are so old, some of the formats were not even supported no more in the new versions of Blender. I had to use Blender 2.7 just to open them up, and then export them as FBX files, so I can use them in newer versions of Blender. After adding a ground plane, I put some of those buildings in the background, and then for the midground I mixed them up with some other building kit bashes and put them in the right place. We have a background and a midground now. The background buildings are all PNG layers. I used the exact same layers in this shot. Now let's quickly go over how this shot was made. I used some of the buildings from the same Star Wars buildings pack, and after setting them up in Blender, rendered them in separate layers as PNGs. As always, we need 3 layers, a foreground, a midground, and a background. I took these PNG layers into Photoshop and painted the background sky for the render. Then I did some minor adjustment and paint over on each one of the layers. After spending some time on each layer in Photoshop, when I thought they looked good enough, I exported them from Photoshop, again separate layers as PNGs. And I also exported the sky separately. I imported these PNG layers back into Blender and set them up in front of the camera. I simply added 2 keyframes to the camera and moved it forward, just to add this great looking parallax effect. And for the moving vehicles, well, those are also separate PNG layers that are painted in Photoshop. I also added 2 keyframes and just moved them from left to the right of the screen. So making this shot was pretty easy. And it's the same process for the background, the same layers, everything. Now that the background and the midground is finished, it's time to move on to the foreground. The background and midground took most of my time, so I had to take care of the foreground even faster. That means probably less details. So for the foreground, I moved this building next to the stairs. I used some modifiers to modify the shape of the stairs and applied some metallic materials to them, and also used some kit bash sets to add some small details to the building itself. It's finally time to take care of the character. For the character, I decided to use Count Dooku.
Master Kenobi, you disappoint me.
And I already had a model of him on my computer. I just don't remember where I got it, but I had it. I thought, why not? Let's use it. So I rigged him and replaced him with the default character. For the lightsaber, I used the same model that I made for the Darth Maul scene, just to save a little time. And with that, the animation was almost done. I just added a cloth seam to his cape, cause, you know, cloth seam is a nice thing to have in your scene. And to wrap it all up, I used this note in the compositor to make the whole image black and white and only keep the reds in the scene. Now this whole scene took me 1 day to make, but it took me almost 2 days just to render it. And I didn't even use my computer for it. I used my friend's MacBook, just so I could make it to the deadline. That was the best thing I had. At least it was better than my potato laptop. And still with all that, there were some glitches that I couldn't fix. I simply didn't have the time to. And some mistakes in the lighting. I don't know what happened, but the lighting I had in mind just didn't look like the final scene that you're seeing right now. it more looked like this, but in the MacBook it turned out like this. I seriously don't know how that happened, but it happened. And at the end, there was no time to fix it. So yeah, that was the final. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you'd like to see a step-by-step tutorial. And please let me know what you think about this video in the comments down below. And if you like this kind of content, then by all means go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It would be really appreciated. Thanks for watching, and see you guys in the next video.